Hello and welcome again to a JAS Land Rover's video. This one, you guessed it, it's Technical Tuesday. We've got a Freelander 2, we've got PicoScope, and we've got a fault code on the diesel air intake valve. So let's get straight into it. So as we know, PicoScope records time along the bottom and essentially voltage up the side, but this one, it's an inferred measurement of current or amps up the side. You can see there's a gap along the bottom before we start recording any data. At the red arrow is where we start recording some data. So we have the thick blue line going across the page. That's we'd already applied current or voltage or power essentially to the motor, but it wasn't turning. At that point, if I twisted the motor by hand, as in started it spinning, it would actually then start turning. As you can see, the data it recorded, it was a bit messy. It looked a bit messy. We didn't quite know what was going on there. The beauty of PicoScope, obviously, is you can zoom in when you have recorded that data. You can zoom in after the event. So on the next screen, that's exactly what we've done. Here we are zooming in. So here we get really technical. Two different arrows. The noise on the last page, the fact that the signal looked a bit messy, actually isn't very messy when you zoom in on it. It's a really obvious repeating waveform. We've got the red arrow is pointing to the normal kind of current draw we would expect for a motor like this. We'll go into that in a bit more detail later. But if we look at the spikes, the current spikes with the yellow arrow, that's obviously showing us much higher current draw than is normal for this motor, than is normal for the rest of the commutator segments. That's actually what we can see at the bottom end. So the yellow arrow then, that's pointing to the peaks of these current kind of spikes, if you like. So just over 4 amps, you can see 4.399 amps, as opposed to not even a quarter of an amp down at the bottom by the red arrow, and which is what we'd expect really for the tiny little motor on this diesel intake shutoff valve. So we're just going to zoom in again and take a look at those, basically a detailed view of that red arrow segment. I'll just point at that next. So there you go then, detailed view of exactly what we were looking at with that red arrow. Just zoomed in a bit more. You can see the regular sections of the waveform along the bottom there, tiny spikes and tiny troughs. That's exactly what we would expect to see. So each one of those spikes is the current draw as the commutator segment passes past each brush. There's obviously multiple commutator segments and multiple brushes on an electric motor. So obviously, go Google it. That is how they work. I'm not lying to you. But that's exactly what we've got. And then we've got these massive spikes in between them. So what normally happens with these motors is exactly this. The nylon gears break up. That's one Google picture. There's another one, nylon gears are broken up, a little bit of oil in there. There's another one, nylon gears completely broken away. In each of those cases, the motor would still turn, which isn't what we've got. We've got a motor that doesn't turn until you turn it manually, and corresponding fault codes for open circuit and all the rest of it. So what do we have then? Well, this is what we've got. We've got a motor and a diesel intake valve absolutely full of oil. The oil has migrated into the electric motor, gone and saturated all of the windings, all of the brushes, and completely wrecked it, basically. It's short-circuiting every time it tries to turn, sorry. As it short-circuits, and that's a reasonably technical term for what we've got here, the current draw goes really high. It's only the momentum of the motor at that point that continues to turn the motor. If it stops, and it stops on one of those short-circuiting areas, then obviously it won't be able to turn itself, it won't be able to start moving again. So what's the fix? Well, it's a simple one. It's a brand new diesel intake shutoff valve, and then calibrate it using autologic, and away we go. Where all the oil came from, none of that oil should have been there. That oil all came from the inlet of the engine. The turbo was breathing fairly heavily, but that's all sorted out as well now. That's it. It's JAS Land Rovers here for you again. Hope you enjoyed this video. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. See you later, guys.